Welcome to Secure Freedom Radio. This is Frank Gaffney, your host and guide for what I think of as an intelligence briefing on the war for the free world. In the course of my own experience with various phases of that war, there are a few people that I have come to admire more and enjoyed working with more closely than Bob Joseph, a former U.S. ambassador to any number of things, in fact, the Standing Consultative Commission among them. He served as a special envoy for nuclear non-proliferation, as the Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security, as a special assistant to the President at the National Security Council, among many other extraordinarily important and influential positions he held in government. These days, he is a senior scholar at the National Institute for Public Policy and very much engaged in the topic that we wanted to discuss with him today, the Iran deal President Obama is now feverishly trying to negotiate. Ambassador Joseph, welcome back. It's good to have you with us, sir.
Well, thank you, Frank. It's always great to be back with you.
Well, notwithstanding John Kerry breaking his leg and, as they say, limping away from the negotiating process, it seems to go forward relentlessly. Give us your reading as things stand now, Bob, based on what we know of the deal, let alone what might eventuate in the remaining few weeks, given what we've seen so far in terms of the Obama administration's negotiating techniques. Is it an acceptable deal? And if not, why not?
Well, Frank, we do know that we have a self-imposed deadline of the end of this month. We do know that the Iranians will continue to play us for everything that we will give that they want. We do have some understanding of the basic parameters of the agreement, which was put out by the White House following this so-called framework arrangement. And on that basis, I think you can say without question that the agreement will fail to address the basic issues that we have all been following. First of all, it does not stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That is no longer our objective. Our objective now is simply to extend the breakout time. But even that concept is fatally flawed under the arrangements as we know it. And things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. But as we know the arrangement, that is fatally flawed for a number of reasons. One, it recognizes Iran as a threshold nuclear weapon state. We can deny that, but it's absolutely true. Two, we don't know where the baseline is for the 12-month clock, given the fact that the Iranians have stonewalled the IAEA and everyone else, for that matter, on the question of activities related to the weaponization, the design of a nuclear warhead and the testing of various elements of that. And also, even if we did know when that 12-month clock started, which we won't because Iran has been a master of denial and deception, but even if we did know, even if you stipulated that we would know, what are we going to do in 12 months? Mobilize the international community, as our president keeps talking about? Well, I tend to doubt that. It's taken us over 10 years to get where we are now. We also know that the agreement is not going to be verifiable. The Ayatollah has told us that national security sites, including all military sites, are off limits.
And in that regard, Bob, if I may, one of the things that we are also aware of, quite apart from that telegraph punch, is that even as this negotiation is going on, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the international organization that is tasked with doing this kind of verification, is being stymied at every turn. So this does not exactly inspire confidence on the verification side.
It is, and I think it's sheer arrogance on our part to consider that an IAEA problem, which is what I'm hearing. That is, our negotiators say, well, that's an IAEA problem, not our problem. I mean, how shameful. I don't think there's another word for it.
Well, especially if we are relying on these people to do the verification job, it's more than shameful. It's really a complete and utter fraud.
Frank, I would just add one other thing that the administration keeps outing, and that is snapback sanctions. And there are recent reports over the course of the last couple of days that Russia and China and others are agreeing on that. No way, no how is that going to be the case I've had decades worth of experience on international sanctions, and no way is there going to be a mechanism, an effective mechanism. Everybody may sign up to the talking points, but an effective mechanism for actually implementing snapback sanctions when, not if, but when Iran cheats on the agreement.
Won't happen. Bob, you've also had decades of experience in the non-proliferation business, as I mentioned, among other things, as the U.S. Special Envoy for Nuclear Non-Proliferation, as well as the senior State Department official responsible for this portfolio. What does it portend, as you see it, that we are witnessing, on the one hand, arrangements being made that have not been extended to others in connection with nuclear energy programs, the design of which is supposed to be keeping them from becoming nuclear weapons programs, on the one hand, and what we're already being told by the Saudis and others that they're going to go get nuclear weapons when, if not before, the Iranians have theirs.
Yeah, and I come at this from a non-proliferation perspective, and I can tell you this is an unmitigated disaster. It already is a disaster, even before the final negotiations are completed. I was in the Gulf a couple of months ago, and I can tell you that the level of contempt and disdain for the United States has never been greater, at least not in my lifetime, my professional lifetime. And there is a sense that we're no longer supportive of our friends. We are providing Iran with the wherewithal so that Iran will be the dominant country in the region. And we are recognizing, as I said, Iran as a threshold state. The Saudis have said that they're going to have whatever Iran has. My sense is they'll probably want more because they know the Iranians better than we do, and they know the Iranians will have more than they say they have. And that, I think, is going to lead to a potential cascade of proliferation because it's not just Saudi. It's also Turkey, it's Egypt, and it is, I think, probably the greatest pending blow to the nuclear non-proliferation regime that one can imagine.
And we've had recently the spectacle of people getting together to discuss the condition of the NPT as though this isn't happening around them. It's extraordinary. In fact, some of them are actually promoting this arrangement with Iran.
Well, Frank, I think we're living in a fantasy world at this point. At least our friends in the White House are. You also have high-level officials out there saying we need more nuclear reductions and let's have more negotiations with Putin's Russia. It's just astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing.
It is, and unfortunately, if it weren't so dangerous, it would be kind of hilarious to see what we're doing to ourselves, among others. Bob, in closing, let me just ask you, against the backdrop of what we're witnessing, and you've expressed concern about other aspects of this deal, notably, giving money to the Iranians, a signing bonus, maybe $50 billion, and what it would translate into in terms of not only their atomic weapons program, but missiles, terrorism or jihad and regional hegemony. Is there, in your professional judgment at this point, really any alternative but military action to prevent this kind of disaster from being realized, namely an Iranian bomb?
Well, I think, as always, to succeed, a credible military threat has to be on the table. It is not today. I think that we have to lead, and we have to lead in the direction of denying Iran any enrichment capacity. And we can, I think, continue to move in that direction with the reimposition and adding on of even more sanctions. I think the sanctions were having an effect on the Iranian economy, and I think that is an option. But if the Iranians continue to choose to nuclear weapons over their own economy and over the health and welfare of their own people, then the use of force has to be an option.
It does indeed. Bob Joseph, former U.S. Ambassador and Undersecretary of State and so much more. As always, thank you for both your friendship and your great work. Keep it up at the National Institute for Public Policy. Come back to us again, if you would, very soon. In the meantime, stay well. Next up, we'll speak with Claudia Rosette, investigative journalist par excellence, about this Iran deal and the relationship with North Korea. What that might mean for both. Straight ahead.